today, what's this all about? We're going to talk about how to collect the information that you have as it relates to your compensation. We lose sight of all the things that we would, in one form or another, construe as compensation. Compensation is not always dollars and cents, right? There's things of value. What is that value that we have at the moment, this particular moment in time? Or if you are unemployed, what did you have most recently? So what are you quite used to earning in the way of value? So I want to let you know, as an executive recruiter, once I started Mile Walk, my executive search firm back at the end of 2004, I wanted to capture an understanding of the job candidates that I was recruiting on behalf of my clients, and I wanted to have a crystal clear picture of what it is they earned so that I could draw the conclusion early on whether I felt my client would be able to compensate them appropriately. So where a lot of you, we struggle with as you go in on your own and an employer asks you, well, what do you expect in the way of compensation, or maybe what do you earn? Back when I started this whole process, it was not illegal in any states in the U.S. to ask what it was that you earned, and most employers required not only your recent compensation, but even your prior two employers. So this was my way of making sure that I was not going to invest a ton of my time trying to make this marriage between my client, the hiring company, and the job candidate who we were recruiting. Most of the candidates that we recruited were passive candidates. They were not looking for a job. We reached out to them. And so more than 90% of them were employed, and most of them were happy. So this was very important that I understood this. But this is something that all of you should have a complete handle on, because I see how we start to rationalize as we get closer to making that change. Am I trading out something that might be better financially? And it becomes very, very difficult if you don't have complete control over what it is that you earn or how it is that you value it. So I want to give you this nice little checklist, much like the last couple days throughout this week. I've been giving you downloads. I've got one today that we've been giving away for years, called, Assess Your Current Professional Financial Worth. So we're going to talk about what's in there. Now, some of you have the interview intervention book. At the moment that we're doing this show, it will not for much longer, this book, I will send it to you anywhere in the world. If you chip in a few bucks for materials and handling, $7, and I will send this book to you. It's a $29 book if you buy it on Amazon. And it's I'll give you the ebook. That's another $9. I'll give you the audiobook. You can't get that anywhere because I recorded it for you. And you get some other perks. But in this book, I go into one of the things that you need to do early on in the process when you're bringing yourself to market. But candidly, I would do this every year anyway, even if I was at the same employer, is I would go through and take stock of what I currently earn. And I talk about some of what we're going to talk about today. I wrote about it in this book. So if you'd like to grab that, I'm sure that my team can drop that in the chat. Let's actually drop that in the chat and grab it if you don't have it. Now, I want to take a look at all the different parts of your compensation. And here again, you could take copious notes, but I'm going to give you the download, and all of what I'm saying is actually in the download, and I even give you a table of all of this stuff as well. But here's how I want you to look at this. Now, you might be thinking, well, Andy, okay, yeah, I need to know my salary. All right, it is actually a little surprising to me, and when I say it's a little surprising to me, I'm talking about, this is Andy on the phone with people, and when I say, okay, what's your salary? Not everybody knows. I would say 8 out of 10 actually know what their salary is, but most of them can't even answer these additional questions that also give you context around your salary. So in the salary, it's part number one. What is it that I earn? Okay, well, what is it on an annual basis? Or an hourly wage, or whatever it is, however you get paid. What is your salary? But what was the date of your last raise? So how long ago was your raise? See, here's what happens. People get into interviewing processes and then they realize, even if up front they were talking with an employer and an employer says, well, what do you currently earn? And maybe you gave them that insight. And then, whoa, you get a raise while you're actually interviewing. And now how sticky is it that you are now going to have to go back and change your answer, so to speak? But you want to have some context, because if you whether you're sharing this information or whether it's just for your own sanity, you want to have an idea. When was the last time I got a raise? When is the next time I am likely to get a raise? Do I anticipate one? So if you are in a position or a country or a situation where an employer can ask you that and you are going to share your current wages, not that I would recommend that you do, but if they're asking and it's a part of the natural process, you want to make sure you're saying, well, I currently earn X, but I'm anticipating a raise soon. Next month, next week, any day now. I'm getting promoted July 31st, whatever it might be. What was the amount? So what kind of leap did you make? Did you go from making $100,000 to $104,000? Did you go from making $100,000 to $120,000? Just have some context for yourself. Here again, you don't have to go sharing all of this information, but have some idea of what's actually happening. If you could move into a better situation, even if you're taking a $2,000 decrement in the salary, they're taking you down to $118, but you have all these other things that are awesome, wouldn't that be smarter if you really like all these other components and you're being put on a better trajectory? Right, these are things that we tend to lose sight of, okay? And then what was the amount of the last raise and what was the amount of the next raise? So just have some idea. So there's not just what do I earn, but when was the last time that was bumped up? When's the next time it will be bumped up? And what was the amount of the last raise? And what was the, I think I might have, I don't know. I wrote these cards a while ago. Anyway, you get the idea on this stuff. And so it just gives you a nice, clear picture of your salary. Now, this is the one that always makes me giggle a little bit. Now, I know a lot of you have bonuses, okay? And here's what I love. Well, Andy, I earn $150,000 and I have a $50,000 target bonus, so I earn $200,000 annually. So, okay, great. Did you get your bonus last year? No. What about the year before? No. So you don't really earn $200,000, even though you think there's a possibility that you should earn $2,000. And it is amazing why people think that their compensation is actually their potential instead of what they actually earn. So get your bonus information, collect that. What's your target? What's the term? So if you're a salesperson, you might be on commissions and you might get a check every week, every month, every quarter, every semi-annually or whatever. Maybe you are a managerial resource or a resource that gets a quarterly bonus based on corporate performance, personal and team metrics or whatever. But what's the term? Here again, well, I earn $100,000. I earn an additional $100,000 in bonuses at $25 a month. And it's looking like, right, I'm probably going to get that bonus right at the end of June or at the end of July when it's paid out or whatever for the second quarter, something like that. So what's the term? When was the last date you received the bonus? How much actually was it? Was it on target? How much was it in relation to what you expected, what you were targeted to earn? What's the next date that you're supposed to get the bonus? What is the amount that you actually anticipate? Do your best to take a guess. You might not have a clue, but either which way, at least think through this. This is amazing. Some of you have very complicated compensation structures. You should notate these. I had the second to last job that I had, actually even both of them really, I had on the cash side of the equation, I had an annual salary like a lot of you. I had quarterly management by objective bonuses. These were discrete bonuses that were based on performance metrics and projects that I was doing and that were evaluated every 90 days. I also had commissionable payouts every month. for stuff that I was managing, sold, or did some other stuff for. So there was a lot of little numbers that were important that you needed to collect. So that's really important. Now, this one can get really hairy. You've got stock or similar. Now, stock can be anything that makes you feel like an owner. Okay, now they might give you a restricted stock unit, which is like cash in hand once you are able to sell it after it vests. There's incentive stock options. Those are a little different. There's profit interest units. So organizations might have profit interest units or phantom stock or other metrics where they create a stock pool of basically little fictitious stock certificates, and they place a value on each of the individual units based on profit. And so based on how many of these you have, they might be giving you bonuses on a quarterly or an annual basis. So this is something else that, while maybe you're not a publicly traded company or you're not being bought up by another organization or whatever, but your profit interest unit could be worth something. What is the vesting schedule? Have clear control over what's opening up for you and what that time frame is. There's all kinds of different vesting schedules. Some are very simple and you get 25% a year for 4 years. Others are you don't get anything for the first year, but after the first year you get 25%, and then every quarter after that you get portions of the next 25% for that year, and so on. But just have a clear understanding, and then what is the actual projected value? Most of the negotiation help that I provide from a recruitment standpoint or from a coaching standpoint when I'm interacting with people in the coaching program or folks in my one-on-one coaching program, we spend a lot of time trying to understand what the projected value is, because based on what the projected value is, there might be signing bonuses or other buyouts, so to speak, of future value. So you want to make sure that you have this. And I cannot stress enough, although I've tried in many, many videos, everything is negotiable, but you've got to have command of what this is. And while the projected value of your profit interest units is not of anybody's concern, as far as what you might be worth to them, but the rationale in your mind that you want to explain to them that this is something I'm considering. Now, you can or can't do it. I mean, you may or may not do something about it, but I want you to know that's going on in my head, right? So employers will understand that. Or maybe they'll delay your start date. Maybe they will split the difference with you as far as what that's worth, because they can't wait 3 months for it all to vest. But just make sure that you understand how these things work, okay? And then what your schedule is. Have command of it, please, because nothing is worse than you going into something and thinking, all right, that sounds good. You get down to the end, they give you an offer, and then you start putting, you sharpen that pencil, put it to paper, and all of a sudden you're thinking, uh-oh, hang on a second. I'm really leaving a lot of money on the table, and I don't want to do that. Okay, so that's another one. Now, I lumped 401k and profit sharing together, but be clear on what, and companies do this a little differently, but a lot of them, the most common way to pay a profit share for most organizations, if you are in their profit sharing plan and trust, is they will deposit the profit share into the 401k account if you have that. So, do you know, is there a match percentage? Is there a cap on the percentage? What are you used to earning? A lot of companies will say, well, we'll give you a straight 6% of your salary. Some will say, we'll give you up to 6%, we'll give you 50 cents on the dollar. There's a number of different formulas, but make sure you're clear on what that amounts to, and make sure you are clear depending on how it is allocated if there's a vesting to it. Because depending on which, and this is very, very U.S. centric, but depending on where this is deposited, how it's deposited, if they have particular set distribution dates if you need to be employed on a certain date to get your deposit on an annual basis, and then how long that you need to leave it in order to vest, or whether you need to be employed in order for it to vest. There are many, many variations of this. This could be big bucks for some of you, because sometimes an employer will deposit a profit-sharing distribution, but then it won't vest for a number of years. If you leave, it takes what's not been vested away from you. So this could be sizable, especially if you're a senior person. So make sure that you have an understanding of what this is. If you do not know what this is, or you do not know how your company does this, you need to get the details. Okay, this is and by the way, all of these things that I'm saying, it goes without saying, but I'm saying it anyway. You need to be thinking this when you're going into the negotiation, meaning, hey, I'm looking at and I'm walking through your offer. I need to understand all of these things. So you see when an employer says to you, hey, Henry, we want to pay you $100,000. How's that sound? Well, when you got all these things going on, how the heck are you going to know how that sounds? So make sure that you got that. Now we're getting to some of these other ones that are a little they're not unique at all, but sometimes they're unique to companies, sometimes they're unique to positions. But there can be a lot of other flexible pieces to your pie. So, some of you might get cars, some of you might get car allowances, some of you might get phones and phone allowances. Some of you might have flexible accounts. In the US, we have health savings accounts, flexible spending accounts where employers will allow you to actually peel out some of your dollars pre-tax in order to allocate them towards commutes and other things like that, health payments and doctor bills and those kind of things. But what about training? My wife, her son was considering a move at one point some years back, and he was looking at the compensation differences. Now, he's a super young guy, and when he looked at it, he said, man, they're paying about $19,000 a year for me to take these tests to gain these credentials in cybersecurity and storage and some of these other areas. And that's meaningful stuff. If one employer will pay for that and another employer isn't paying for that, and you earn $100,000 and you're kicking in another 20 for training, that's pretty important that you would want to understand. Do these certifications, do they make you more marketable? Might you want to make sure? These are little things that you don't think about that all of a sudden, when you get down to the end, starts to squeeze you. So you want to have an understanding of what this looks like, okay? There's some other things. There's what I would call non-quantifiable perks. So not flex spending, but flexibility. Do you work from home, right? Maybe you don't need the expensive clothes to go into the office. Maybe you don't have to pay the commutes. Maybe you don't have to pay the excessive parking, like if you drive into downtown Chicago. Work from home, that kind of stuff. Maybe you travel. Maybe you love travel. Maybe you love traveling and you love seeing all the cities and you're racking up all the frequent flyer miles, right? That kind of stuff. Additional training opportunities. Maybe you just got a great boss that you're learning a ton from. Maybe that boss is taking you under his or her wing. Maybe there's some internal training programs that you really would like to take a part of. Maybe your company is paying for an executive coach. Who knows? Whatever it might be. But these are not necessarily dollars and cents immediately to your bottom line in the way of take-home pay, but these are certainly things that should add up value-wise. So make sure that you do that. Now, I got another one. Make sure, actually, I'm going to do 7. Make sure that you understand if there are any repercussions. So sometimes you go and you get your MBA and the company will pay for it. And then you need to stay a certain amount of time. Like you got to stay 2 years after you take that class. And then every quarter that tacks on another quarter. And if you should leave at any point, if you haven't made your 2-year window, you're going to owe us that education reimbursement back. Maybe there is signing bonuses that I gave you that if you do not stay past 1 year, you're going to have to pay it back. Maybe there is relo fees that we've paid and expenses we've incurred, in which case if you leave within 2 years or 1 year or 3 years or whatever your terms were, you got to pay it back. You got to know this, because when you go into, imagine you're going into a discussion with somebody and you are saying, yeah, you know, 100,000, that's in my range, except that there's a $30,000 relocation expense that you're going to get hammered with if you move, right? So all of a sudden, you're well out of bounds, or you're going to have something penal that you're going to have to deal with, or the hiring company is going to have to pay for it in order for you to get over there. This happens. We one time recruited a guy out of Atlanta who had relocated from a different state. I'm in the Chicagoland area. I was recruiting for one of the large food and beverage companies, and that guy, who was probably $300,000 a year resource, they had to pay his relo and his signing bonus back because he had been there less than a year. It costs another $50K and change on top, all up front. So they gave it to him so he could give it to them, right? And then we had to account for taxes on top of that. So these are realities. These can rack up. And then one other thing, and I just kind of threw this out because this does happen. It's not a super common, but a number of these do. We once had a client, and you know, this was kind of crazy, but they worked in the capital market space, and they did technology consulting for financial firms, trading firms, and it was a casual bunch. They used to wear like jeans and t-shirts and shorts to work, and then she went from business casual to jeans and t-shirts, all the way to suits and ties and business attire for men and women. And after years of not having that, because she thought that by dressing up that she could charge more for their consulting fees, so she had to give them all money to go out and get thousands of dollars to go out and buy new clothes. She gave everybody who was there and anybody who came into the company a clothing stipend immediately. I mean, this stuff happens, right? Have you been working out of your home and all of a sudden you're now going to go work for a new company where you got to buy new clothes? I would say, hey, I got to buy new clothes. I got to buy the kind of clothes I got to take to the cleaners. You know, is there any chance that I could get a sign-on bonus or whatever? Gym memberships, other things like this, first class perks. I fly first class, international. What do you mean it's domestic, right? Like, you want to know these things. I'm not saying you got to get all these things, or that it like you got to go apples for apples, because rarely are you ever going to get in a situation where you're actually trading apples for apples. No, it is my experience that no two companies have the exact same pay structure. There's always little nuances, little differences in the comp. So just to recap this really quickly, make sure you got everything related to your salary. Make sure you have complete command of your bonus and your bonus targets, your terms, and all those things. Stock is very important. Make sure you understand what you have, when it vests, how much it's worth, if it's in the black, if it's in the red. You want to make sure that you understand your 401k and profit sharing allocations and distributions. You also want to make sure that any allowances are accounted for, as well as are there any other things that you value that you can't necessarily put an exact dollar on? Watch the repayments, and then kind of the catch-all. Is there anything else? All right, now I do have a sweet download where in this download, maybe Kara, maybe we could swap it out, swap the pin for them. But in this download, there's a write-up in here. I break down, you know, I don't know if you see this really well. I break down what this stuff is, what I talked about. It's great to accompany with this talk, as well as I've given you, you know, kind of a table that you, I'm sure, cannot make out, but is there. So I hope you enjoyed that. That's today's talk. If you're with me live, we're going to be going to the Q&A here in a minute. If you're watching me on the recording, I'll see you next week.